It's arguably the worst time right now because deep down, you've never had less peace. You open your banking app not because you're worried about overdrafting, not anymore, but because something doesn't add up. The numbers are higher, the promotions happened, the salary negotiations worked, and yet there's this feeling, like standing in a room that's slowly losing oxygen. Nothing is wrong, everything is fine. And fine is the thing that's killing you. There's a number between where you are and where you think freedom starts. And most people believe crossing it is just a matter of time, patience, grinding, compounding. But there's something about the distance between 10,000 and 100,000 that nobody tells you. It's not a math problem. It's a completely different game. And the rules of that game will contradict almost everything you've been told about how money works. Let me tell you what really happens when your income starts climbing. Not the version you hear at dinner parties or read in personal finance threads. The version nobody talks about because it makes successful people uncomfortable. When you were making less, the rules were simple. Spend less than you earn. Save what's left. Don't be stupid. And that worked. It worked because the constraint was external. You didn't have choices to agonize over. You couldn't afford the nicer apartment, so you didn't get it. You couldn't afford the car upgrade, so you drove what you had. The walls were close, but at least you could feel them. You knew where you stood. Then the income grew. And the walls didn't disappear. They moved. They moved outward just enough that you couldn't feel them anymore, but not far enough that you were actually free. And that space in between, that ambiguous zone where you have too much to feel broke and not enough to feel safe, that's where most people live for decades without ever naming what's wrong. Here's what actually happened the moment you started earning more. You didn't just get more money. You got more exposure, more surface area for obligation. The raise came with a new title, and the new title came with expectations. And the expectations came with costs you never agreed to explicitly, but absorbed anyway. The better neighborhood, the nicer dinners, the car that doesn't embarrass you in the parking garage at work. None of it was mandatory. All of it felt mandatory. And the distance between those two things is where your freedom quietly bled out. You were told more income equals more options. But what if more income just equals more expensive obligations wearing the costume of options? Think about water for a moment. Not money, not investments, water. Imagine you're carrying water across a desert. At the beginning, you have a small cup. It's not much, but you protect every drop. You walk carefully. You cover the top. You're aware of exactly how much you have because losing even a little means something. Now someone hands you a bigger container, a bucket. You feel relief. More water, more margin, more safety. But the bucket is open, and as you walk, it sloshes. A little spills here, a little more there. The wind catches some. You don't notice each individual loss because the bucket looks full enough. You're carrying more water than you ever had in the cup, and yet somehow, by the time you stop to rest, you look down and realize you're not much better off than when you started. That's what's happening to most people between 10,000 and 100,000. They graduated from the cup to the bucket. They feel like they're carrying more. They are carrying more, but the spill rate increased faster than the capacity, and no one told them to put a lid on it. Because the culture doesn't sell lids, it sells bigger buckets. The cup phase was uncomfortable but legible. You knew the rules. You could feel progress in $100 increments. Every small deposit into savings felt like a brick being laid. Solid, measurable. You were building something and you could see it. The bucket phase feels like carrying something heavy with nothing to show for it. The money moves through your life like weather. It arrives, it passes, and the landscape looks roughly the same afterward. And here's where it gets strange. This is where most people start blaming themselves. They think the problem is discipline. It's not. They think the problem is budgeting. It's not. The problem is that no one told them that the game changes. that the skills that got you to 10,000 don't get you to 100,000. That saving harder isn't the answer when the system around you is engineered to absorb every increase before you can capture it. There's a shift that has to happen, and it doesn't happen in your bank account. It happens somewhere behind your eyes. It's the moment you stop seeing money as something you accumulate and start seeing it as something you either control or get controlled by. And at this stage, right here, in the ugly middle between 10 and 100, most people are being controlled and they don't know it because the control feels like comfort. Let me describe two people. Same age, same city, same industry, nearly identical salaries. Person one gets the raise and immediately feels the relief. Finally, breathing room. They don't do anything reckless. They're not irresponsible. They just let the edges soften. Slightly better apartment, a subscription they'd been wanting, dinners out one more night a week, clothes that match the new role. Each decision is small. Each decision is reasonable. And in 12 months, their savings rate is exactly what it was before the raise. Not because they failed, because they adapted. Their lifestyle perfectly calibrated itself to their new income, like a thermostat adjusting to a new setting. They never felt it happen. It just did. Person two gets the same raise and does something unusual. Nothing. They don't upgrade. They don't adjust. They sit with the discomfort of having money they're not spending, which is a discomfort most people don't even realize exists. There's an itch that comes with unspent capacity, a quiet cultural pressure that says if you can afford better, you should have better. Person two doesn't scratch that itch, not because they're monk-like or disciplined in some extraordinary way, because they saw something person one didn't see. They saw that the raise wasn't a reward, it was a test. And the test wasn't about willpower, it was about identity. Can you earn more without becoming someone who needs more? That question, that single question, is the door between 10,000 and 100,000. And most people never even realize it's a question because it disguises itself as progress. What happens inside a person's mind when they stop reacting to income and start directing it? The transformation is almost invisible from the outside. Nothing changes about how they look, how they talk, how they spend their weekends. The shift is entirely internal, and it begins with a reversal of a belief they didn't know they held. Before the shift, every financial decision starts with, what can I afford? After the shift, every financial decision starts with, what is this costing me in time? Not money, time. Because somewhere in the space between 10 and 100,000, you start to realize that money is convertible. It converts into months, into options, into the ability to say no without consequence. And when you start measuring expenses in months of freedom instead of dollars, everything looks different. That dinner out isn't $40. It's a fraction of a day you'll have to work in the future. Not because the dinner is wrong, but because now you see the exchange rate. And seeing the exchange rate changes which trades you're willing to make. The person who reaches 100,000 in savings didn't get there by being cheap. They got there by becoming fluent in a language most people never learn. The language of conversion. Converting dollars to time. Converting obligations to choices. Converting the weight of lifestyle into the lightness of margin. And margin is the thing that nobody talks about because it's invisible. You can't post it. You can't wear it. You can't park it in the driveway. But margin is the difference between someone who negotiates from strength and someone who accepts from need. Here's what's true and verifiable and almost unbearably simple once you see it. A person spending $6,000 a month who saves $2,000 a month will accumulate $100,000 in roughly 3.5 years, assuming even modest returns. A person spending $8,000 a month who also earns more but saves the same $2,000 will reach the same number in the same time. But they won't be in the same position, Not even close. Because the person spending 6 has 16 months of runway in that 100,000. The person spending 8 has 12. Same pile of money, different gravity. The lower your cost of living, the more powerful every dollar saved becomes. Not in what it earns, but in what it represents. It represents time. And time at 100,000 is not the same as time at 10,000. Because at 100,000, time starts to compound in ways that go beyond interest rates. When you have 12 months of expenses saved, you start to walk differently. Not arrogantly, calmly. You take the meeting with the recruiter because you're curious, not because you're desperate. You ask for the salary you actually want, instead of the one you think they'll accept. You pass on the project that would pay well, but hollow you out, because you can afford the gap. You stop saying yes reflexively, and start saying, "Let me think about it," which is the most expensive sentence in the English language, because only people with margin can afford to use it. People think 100,000 is about the money. It's not. It's about what the money does to the space between stimulus and response. Before 100,000, someone offers you a bad deal and you react instantly because you need the outcome. After 100,000, there's a pause, a breath, a moment where you can evaluate without the static of survival clouding your judgment. And in that pause, in that tiny gap of silence, better decisions get made. Not because you're smarter, because you're not afraid. There is a version of you that already exists on the other side of this number, and that version doesn't think about money the way you think about it now. That version has stopped counting and started choosing, stopped surviving and started positioning. The difference isn't dramatic. It isn't cinematic. It looks like declining an invitation without guilt, like sleeping through the night without the low hum of financial dread you've grown so accustomed to that you mistake it for personality, like looking at an opportunity and asking whether it's interesting instead of whether it pays enough. But here's where people destroy themselves, and I need you to hear this clearly, because this is the exact place where intelligent, ambitious, high-earning people sabotage the very thing they've built. They get close. 70, 80, 90,000 saved. They can feel it. The finish line of the first 100,000 is visible for the first time. And something happens. The pressure reverses. Instead of the pressure to save, they feel the pressure to use. They've been disciplined for years. They've watched friends take vacations and buy houses and upgrade everything while they sat still. And now the identity of the saver starts to crack. Not because they're weak, because they're human. And humans under sustained restraint eventually need release. So they find a reason. The car is getting old. The apartment really is too small now. They deserve something for all this sacrifice. And the thing they buy isn't outrageous. It's reasonable. It's defensible. But it resets the clock. Not by the dollar amount of the purchase, by the psychological reset it triggers. Because once the seal breaks, once you prove to yourself that the savings are accessible, that they're spendable, the relationship changes. The money stops being untouchable and becomes a resource with 1,000 reasonable claims against it. And the next purchase is easier, and the one after that. And suddenly, you're 37 with 62,000 saved, wondering why you can't seem to crack that barrier you've been circling for 4 years. The first 100,000 isn't a financial milestone. It's a psychological barrier. And the barrier isn't about accumulation. It's about identity. It's about becoming the kind of person who can sit next to a large number and not touch it, who can have options and not exercise them, who can feel the pull of every reasonable upgrade the world offers and remain still. Not rigid, still. There's a difference. Rigid people break. Still people choose. This is why the game changes at 100,000. Not because of compound interest, though that matters.
Not because of investment returns, though those help.
The game changes because you've proven something to yourself that can never be unproven. You've proven you can build something without consuming it. You've proven that your identity isn't dependent on what you display. You've proven that the distance between earning and spending can widen without your life collapsing. And that proof, that quiet, boring, invisible proof, becomes the foundation of everything that comes after. Because here's what nobody tells you about the second 100,000. It takes roughly half the time. Not because the math changes dramatically, though it does help. Because you change. The habits are locked. The identity is formed. The muscle memory of restraint is so deep, it doesn't require effort anymore. The decisions that felt like sacrifice at 20,000 feel like instinct at 100. And the third 100,000 comes even faster. And somewhere around that point, the money starts working louder than you do. And the game shifts from labor to gravity, from pushing to being pulled. But all of that, every bit of it, depends on surviving the first 100,000 without breaking, without letting the pressure convert your progress into lifestyle, without letting the world convince you that having money means spending money. Remember what I said at the beginning, that something doesn't add up, that your income is higher, but your peace isn't, that you're doing everything right and still feel constrained. The reason is simple. And it's the thing I've been circling this entire time. Wealth is not money. Wealth is the number of bad options you can survive without fear. That's what the first 100,000 gives you. Not luxury, not status, not even comfort necessarily. It gives you the ability to absorb a bad month, a bad quarter, a bad year, without the floor falling out. It gives you the ability to sit across from someone who has power over your income and feel nothing. No anxiety, no desperation, just stillness, just the quiet knowledge that you'll be fine either way. And that stillness, that is the game. That's what changes after 100,000. Not the numbers in your account, the feeling in your chest when someone asks you to do something you don't want to do. The pause before you answer. The space where fear used to live, now occupied by something harder to name. Control. Not over the world, over yourself. Over the gap between what you earn and what you need. Over the silence you can afford to hold when everyone else is rushing to respond. That's the different game. And now you know the rules. Please subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed this video. See you soon.